Welcome our next speaker, Daria Vlasova, who worked in marketing in the gaming industry more than 4 years, both on indie and AAA projects. She has experience in Germany and Finland. Daria, you can take the thing.
Thank you very much for passing the word to me, Evgenia. So hello, everyone. As Evgenia said, my name is Daria, and today I'm hoping to give you an introduction to modern game marketing and to give you some practical guide on the basics. So let me begin by giving a small introduction about myself, so that you knew who is this person who is telling you all these things. So my name is Daria, as has been mentioned before. I'm a bachelor in media and communications with German. I'm also a master's in international marketing in management. I have a 4+ years experience in game marketing in various countries. Also managed to be a co-author in a book on successful negotiations. I speak Russian, Ukrainian, English, and German at a native or close to native levels, and also some Spanish and Japanese. And my favorite game is Red Dead Redemption 2, as you can see in this picture here. So, thank you very much for coming today to the lecture, and I hope you will enjoy it. So let me begin by discussing the plan of our presentation. So as you can see here, there's a little diver who is looking at this tentacle weird kind of monster, which is marketing. So from these depths of the lake, I hope that by the end of this presentation, by touching upon all these bubbles here, we'll arrive to the surface where there is these wonderful green sunny hills and also a lighthouse, which is ideally will be the successful promotion of your project or your studio brand. So let me begin by discussing what marketing is. So we cannot really discuss what marketing is without a clear understanding of what exactly we mean here by a market. Usually when people think of markets, the associations that they immediately have are a fish market, for example, or market of antiques. And actually the market that we are talking about here is not that much different. So at the fish market, for example, you have fishermen who sell fish to the customers. And if the customers like the fish, they come back again to those fishermen and buy again. Here in this presentation, we will be talking particularly about the video games market. Of course, there are different types of games markets out there. There are AAA games markets, for example, indie games, online games, mobile games. But because we are limited in the time and scope in this presentation, we will touch upon the video games market in particular. Okay, so the video games market consists of the gaming studios, the guys who promote, who have the games, who produce the games. Hopefully you're one of them, or you're thinking to become one of them. And also of the customers, the people who are playing your games. Of course, in the market, there are also other stakeholders, and stakeholder is a party that is also interested in the market. For example, publishers or investors or marketing agencies. So this is how the video games market generally looks like. Now, what exactly is marketing then? Okay, so we have the video games market that we just discussed, right? But now we also want your studio to be a part of this market. We want your studio to be in the pool of the other game studios. How do we do that? Exactly, to put your studio in a particular market, in this case, in the video games market, we do the art of marketing. So basically, marketing can be understood as a process of positioning your studio or your project into the pool of gaming studios of projects or projects of the same market. Okay? What is very important here is something called the circulation of value. So, but what is meant by value here is the benefit that you give to your players, your customers, your players, however you want to call them. And you give this value in the form of a game, usually. But what is crucial here is to understand that you do not just send your game to people and hope that it will be an amazing game and everyone will buy it. No, this is a two-way process, which means that you supply value for your players in the form of a game usually, and you get this value back from the players in the form of feedback. Feedback that is extremely important because feedback can help you adjust your game, adjust your marketing strategy, and to be more relevant to your audience. If you are relevant, this will likely bring you to the best success, the highest success that you can have with your game. Okay, we will touch upon these topics a little, a bit more further in this presentation. But let's remember now that what we have in the market is primarily the gaming studios, your players, and the value circulation between your studio and the players. Now, let's have an example. Who doesn't love examples, especially in the gaming industry? So let's imagine that you are an indie developer, okay? So you want to create a video game which is about shooting aliens in space. And we call it Alien Space Kill. So you even have a nice logo here for this particular game, all right? So therefore, the resulting markets that would be of interest to you, where you could position your game, where you could do your marketing, include indie games, games with aliens, sci-fi games, space games, and there are many, many more of them. But we will talk about this more part a little bit later in this presentation. Why do we even need marketing? Might be your question. And you would be quite right, because nowadays people think that marketing might be even overrated. If we go online, we see so many courses, so many mentions of social media market targeting. All of this stuff can be very confusing, and people think that this is just some weird science that everyone wants to be a part of these days. Well, short answer, marketing is not overrated, but it's very popular nowadays. And I will briefly explain you why. So before, even in the previous century, there was more a way of marketing things is that you produce a product and you sell it to the general public. When nowadays we are mostly focused on one single person. We look at this person and we want to know who this person is. What is their behavior on the daily basis? How do they use their phones? Do they use consoles? Do they use PCs? Do they play games? If yes, then what kind of games? If not, then why not? Maybe they're just not interested in them yet, and we can somehow find out a way, find an approach for them to play the game. So you need to ask all those questions about these unique people. And of course, there is a lot of strategies and art about that. This is primarily the reason, especially considering the rise of the technology and the social networks, this is primarily the reason why you see so much mentions, so much mentions of marketing these days. Okay, so, but let's hope it will be a bit more clear for you after this presentation. So now that we are done and we have some slight understanding of this tentacle monster marketing in the depths of this lake, we can now move on to the foundation of your marketing strategy. Okay, basically, your foundation consists of clearly defining your marketing goals. To define your marketing goals, you need to first understand what your business goals are and what your project's goals are. And we will stop in detail in each of those types of goals and explore them. Okay. So let's talk about the business goals. Okay. Even if you are a one-person developer, you need to have a certain understanding of where you are going with your game, with your project, possibly with your studio. Of course, the first thing that you are thinking of is that I just want to release my game, but there are also other other nuances that you might want to consider to make your game sell more successfully, such as establishing your studio brand, for example, or promoting it further by, for instance, establishing social networks. It can also be about attracting investors and publishers. Or, for instance, if you have a small team and you're feeling like, maybe guys, we are not going to launch this project on time, or this is not enough quality because we just don't have enough people, you might want to expand your business, and this would be a task for business development, and you might want you to hire a bit more guys to help you out with your project. So you need to set up your business goals before you can move on to your marketing goals. In our example, remember that alien space kill game? So let's imagine that we have 3 guys, okay? Natasha, Dennis, and Konstantin. So they worked together on Alien Space Kill, and they decided to form a gaming studio called NDK Interactive. Yes, very creative. Thank you very much. The name comes from the first letters of their names, as you can see. Okay, so the guys just sat together and were probably with some beer and just thinking, okay, what could be our business goals? And of course, in reality, there are many business goals that a studio might have, or even a couple of people who are producing a game might have. But for the sake of time and scope of this presentation, we will have just one as an example here, okay? So for the NDK Interactive, they decided that their goal is their brand of NDK Interactive to be better known in the developers communities of the sci-fi genre. Well, because they're producing a game in the sci-fi genre. And this is actually a very good way to exchange knowledge, to get some feedback on the project that they are currently having, to do some networking, maybe even see maybe there are guys who would be interested in collaborating with them on this game, or there are some promotional opportunities, like there are some media who are lingering in those developers communities who want some fresh ideas, fresh studios to write about. So all kinds of opportunities can be drawn from this. We'll have this as the business goal example for now. Now let us move to the project goals. Of course, the first project goals that thing comes to mind is to launch the project, and you have it here, you see. But also there can be other project goals that you might consider that will help you launch the project in the most efficient way, such as, for instance, create awareness about the project's brand, like establish communities about it, establish social media around it, maybe create some events, maybe some do offline gatherings, games gathering. Also, attract investors to the project can be one of the goals you want to achieve. So you consider all that, and with our example of Alien Space Kill, so what we know about this game is that we want the NDK Interactive guys, they want to release it in about a year. The team already set up a Facebook page for this game. And therefore, their resulting goals would be to build a strong community around Alien Space Kill and to strengthen its brand and promote it further. So basically, to establish relevant communities around the brand, and also to make the brand better known so that we would get a larger pool of potential players who would be interested in the game when it launches. Okay, nice. So now that we have down our business goals and project goals, let's move on to the marketing goals, which is basically answering the question, what are my business and project goals combined? So as we mentioned before, our resulting marketing goals, therefore, would be to strengthen the NDK Interactive brand in relevant developers communities, build a strong community around Alien Space Kill, and strengthen its brand and promote it further. So now we have the foundation of your marketing strategy down. We understand exactly what kind of goals we want to achieve with our marketing strategy. What is very important here is to spend a good time and have a good thought on your marketing goals, because this is the foundation that will always guide you. All the rest of the marketing strategy steps that you're going to do next all depend on the foundation that you have laid out. And whenever you feel that you're in doubt or you're lost, you can always consult your marketing strategy foundation. It will always guide you towards the best decision. So please spend some more time, some more research on this. This is really worth it. Okay. Okay, we have the foundation down. Now let's move on to the analysis. Now, the analysis is a word that many people initially don't like because it's largely associated with huge numbers, with graphs, with statistics, Excel, and so on. It doesn't have to be like this. And I will try to make it as much fun for you as possible, or, well, maybe not fun as such, but at least understandable and clear as possible. Okay. So the analysis consists of 3 major steps. There can be more, of course, but let's focus on these 3 because they are the core of any marketing analysis. So the first step is always segmentation. Now, let's talk about what segmentation actually is. Imagine you have a pie, a nice, rich carrot cake, or the pie you prefer, okay? This pie would be our market of video games, all right? Then you get a knife and you cut this pie to various pieces, all right? Each of those pieces will be quite different. It will differ in size, in the texture maybe you messed up and it's not as beautiful as the other pieces, you know, of that pie. So, but there will be one thing in common. All these pieces, they will be a part of that large pie, okay? Same here. You take a large market, like in our case, the video games market, and you cut it to pieces, and those pieces, they all are the part of the video games market, but they have something on their own that is quite different from the rest, okay? So to be clearer, let's have our example of Alien Space Kill here. So what we remember from the previous slides is that it's an indie space shooter, and it is about killing aliens. But what if I also give you a few more details about it? Such as that this is a 2D game. It focuses on visually beautiful art and environments made by a team set in Germany, so they produce the game in German and English, and it will release on Steam, okay? Therefore, the segments of the video games market that we might be interested in include sci-fi games, space games, German language games, English language games, and so on. There can be many, many segments that you can think of if you really take your game and try to list its details and see and think what kind of segments I can really address with my game. Okay, there can be many of them. But what is really important here is that it's fine to have this huge list as long as your segments are relevant to your game. Okay, so when you're doing this, try to stay focused on your game. Always have your project in mind. And when you're listing these things, try to always ask yourself a question. Is this segment relevant to my game? Among this probably huge number of segments, of course, for any game, the key here is to find those that are the most relevant. How do you understand whether a certain segment is relevant to my particular game? Well, you analyze your segments. You try to understand is it possible to have enough players in this segment that will buy my game? Or maybe your segment consists only of young children who cannot pay for themselves, so they prefer free games, for instance, so are there generally enough players who would be interested in this particular type of the game? So you need to select the most relevant segments, maybe a few of them. You usually start with one or a few segments to test your strategies, to see how they work. And then, depending on the results, you understand which other segments you could have possibly addressed. Okay, so what is also said here is don't be afraid of a niche market. Niche means that, for instance, we have this large market called the video games market. But here, for instance, we also have German sci-fi indie games enthusiasts. This is also a market, okay? It's a segment of a market, but this is also a small market in itself. And this is called a niche market, meaning that it has very narrow characteristics on its own, okay? Like, it's obviously not as large as the video games market. Don't be afraid of it. As long as you evaluate this niche market as being profitable for you and relevant, therefore, then it's fine to have it. Okay, then it's fine to try your marketing strategy on it. Okay. For our example of Alien Space Kill, we will have German sci-fi indie games enthusiasts market or segment as an example. So after you're finished with your segmentation, what you do is that you take your segments and analyze each of them separately. And you analyze them in terms of the environment. Now, what exactly is meant by environments here? So we have, like, in the middle, your gaming studio here, okay, where you see Alien Space Kill. But there are also other forces that exist in this world that might influence your project and also how you may market it. For instance, there is a microenvironment. Okay, this is environment that usually exists independently of your business. It can involve political, social, cultural, and many more characteristics of, for instance, the country that your studio is located in, or in the country where you want to publish your game, for example. So, to give you an example, you can perfectly fine publish your game in one country, but you might need to censor some parts of it in when you want to publish it in other countries, because it is required by law there, So similar thing happens here with marketing. When you're creating your strategy, you must consider these nuances depending on the environment you want to release your project and you want to create your marketing strategy in. Okay, so in that German sci-fi indie enthusiasts segment, you probably want to consider the German political, social, cultural situation. Is this okay to promote this game in there? Like, is this politically correct? If you want to release the same game, for instance, in Spain, or is this the same situation there, or should it maybe find a different approach, which is the likeliest scenario? You usually create approaches for different countries which are different from each other, So you consider those. Then there is also microenvironment, which is an environment that is closer to you. So it's more about your industry. So here you have customers, which are your players, competitors, which are other studios, and suppliers, intermediaries, which could be your art outsource, for instance, if you're looking for one. Now, it's important to point out that when you're analyzing these environments, you're not only looking for threats like the ones that I mentioned with censorship, for example, but also for opportunities. And a good example in microenvironment is that there is an opportunity to learn something new from other studios. Like here at Games Gathering, for example, where we have many professionals from various spheres, but from the same industry, we can learn from each other and apply this to our projects or our studios and be better in what we are doing to bring more value to our players. We can also learn from our players who can set up trends, for instance, in social networks, and we can take advantage of them. So this would be the power of microenvironment. The inner environment is the environment that exists within your studio, for instance. So do you have enough stuff, for example, to complete your project? Is there enough workspace? Is there enough equipment? So those, like for instance, if you want to create amazing short films about aliens, and you are just 1-2 persons really spending all the time you have on your game, this is probably not the best idea, you know, although of course it is a great idea and a beautiful one that will draw a lot of attention. You may not have a resource for it. So forces that exist inside your studio, your business, are also the ones you need to consider. Okay. So let's have an example with our alien space skill. So if you remember, we have chosen that segment of German sci-fi indie games enthusiasts, and we ask ourselves, what are the opportunities and threats here? So again, because we have a limited scope and time in this presentation, we will not discuss threats in so much detail, but we will focus rather on the opportunities. And if you remember the NDK Interactive guys, there are just 3 guys, and they think that they will do fine with their game. So we'll focus on macro environment and micro environment here. And for example, in terms of the macro environment, we found out that German government sponsors space-related projects targeting young people. This is a great chance for us to step in and to show our project as well in this program and maybe get some promotional opportunities together with German government, which is launching this project, you know. So this could be an opportunity for us. In terms of microenvironment, we have been discussing or having a look, you know, at what other studios in the field are doing. And we found out that actually there is a lot of attention that comes from their audience towards the pictures that have beautiful imagery of space and some sci-fi imagery as well. So we will remember this for now and take advantage of that in the future. Okay. So after you have done your environments analysis, we are now moving on to analyzing your audience. Now, it says target audience, okay? Let me be clear about what target exactly means. Target means to address the audience, okay? So target audience means the audience that you want to address with your marketing strategy. So in our case, this is going to be the players of Alien Space Skill, and particularly the potential players of Alien Space Skill who are in that German sci-fi indie games enthusiasts segment. Okay? Okay. So we need to analyze our audience in terms of various characteristics. One of them is geographic, where the audience is located, their region, in some cases maybe even neighborhood. Psychographic, which means what is their lifestyle, what are their values and beliefs. Sometimes that affects your marketing strategy too. What is their behavior? Like, for example, if you are creating a game for mobile, you might be interested how often your target audience uses their phone. Do they use it in the morning and before bed, or maybe they have a chance to play during the day as well? So those things you also need to consider. and demographic, of course, which is age, gender, income, marital status. Sometimes those things influence your analysis too, to better understand your audience. And to give you the example from Alien Space Scale, we've done some research and we found out that our audience is primarily German in that particular segment. Our audience is German. They are 16-25 years old, primarily male. They are also mostly unemployed. Use their mobile devices primarily in the morning and before bed. Generally like the sci-fi genre and hang out in relevant Facebook groups. Love space virtual photography and favor inexpensive indie games on Steam. So probably sounds like the guys that we want to address, because our game kind of sounds like that as well, right? So this is the guys that we would definitely would be interested in our case. Okay, so that was the analysis. How was the analysis? Not so bad after all, huh? Okay, just give me 1 second to. All right. Okay, so we've laid out the foundation for our marketing strategy. We've also done the analysis. Now we are moving to strategy and tactics. And although that might seem a bit difficult and something very, very serious, actually, this is probably one of the most exciting steps on your way to this green hills here where your promotion takes place. Because strategy and tactics is the place where you can get really creative. And this is the part of marketing that most people love most. Okay, so what you do here is that you create strategy based on your marketing goals, and then you try to achieve those strategical goals by thinking of certain ways how you could do this, and these ways are called your tactics. Okay. So you ask yourself a question: how do I approach the target audience to achieve my marketing goals? And this is what responds to that question: strategy and tactics. However, before we start discussing strategy and tactics, we will focus once again on a very important thing. Whichever approach you take to address your audience, you must always bring value to them. Don't just post something because it's time to post something or because everybody posts something. You always have to do something that brings value, okay, and that is relevant to your particular project, to your particular studio, okay? So let's be honest. All of us have lives, and we don't want to spend our lives on something that just eats up our attention and doesn't give us anything. Okay, make sure that you respect this when you are creating your marketing strategy, that whichever content you create, or however way you come up with to attract attention to your product, actually respects your players and their attention and the time that they dedicate to you. Because if you don't do this, no one wants to hang out or to be a part of something that just posts bad content or just doesn't, you feel like nobody cares, and you know, like, what's going on there? Like, I don't want to be a part of something that just weird, some weird kind of stuff, you know. No one wants to be a part of that. Everybody wants to be a part of something that actually brings some value to their lives. Okay, so these two words, value and relevance, they always have to follow your strategy. Like every time, whenever, whichever approach you take, whenever you create something new, you always have to ask yourself a question: is this relevant to my particular case? Is this relevant to my audience? And does it bring the audience the value? Okay. So let's move on to discussing the strategy. So remember the marketing goals that we put together a little bit in the beginning of this presentation. So to remind you, those goals were to strengthen the studio brand in relevant developers communities, to build a strong community around Alien Space Kill, and to strengthen it and promote it further. Okay, so from these marketing goals, we have resulting strategy. Okay, so the marketing goals, they turn into strategic goals, which in our case would be to establish the studio brand in communities, to promote and develop the brand, also get loyal fans around both brands, develop the communities of Alien Space Kill, and enhance its brand in relevant communities. So although now that I'm saying this out loud, this all may seem like confusing and kind of the same things, and that's totally understandable. But actually, if you dig a bit deeper here, you will see that what you generally like, your marketing goals are the general ideas that you want to achieve. The strategic goals are the precise things you need to do, you need to achieve, so that you would get that bigger picture, that rather general picture of your marketing goals. Okay, we will move on to tactics now, and hopefully the tactics that I suggest there would be will help you understand how the strategic goals work better. Okay, so again, tactics is the way of achieving those strategic goals. Now, for our case of Alien Space Kill, we will divide our tactics into offline activities and online activities. Let's start from the offline activities. So, the NDK Interactive guys, they were sitting together and thinking, okay, what can we do to achieve our strategic goals? And they came up with a few ideas. So, for instance, offline, they decided they want to network at Berlin Games Week, which will help to enhance, which addresses their goal of enhancing their brand in developers communities. Remember, so this is relevant. They decided to network at Berlin Games Week, also cosplay aliens at Berlin Comic Con and give out brochures. Now here. Although it seems like a good idea in itself, actually brings even more opportunities that can be seen on the first sight. For instance, okay, you cosplay aliens at Berlin Comic Con and you give out brochures, but what's the likely scenario is that many people will want to take pictures with you and possibly publish them on Instagram. And if you teach them which hashtag they could use, this could actually get more attention to your game, get more people interested. Although this is not an immediate idea, not an immediate way of your tactics that you thought of primarily, you know. So these opportunities, they often exist that you do not see right away. So whenever you see one lingering at the horizon, you know, make sure you take advantage of it. Okay, have a stall at the sci-fi convention organized by the government space awareness program. That's pretty self-explanatory. That's the one, by the way, from the Microenvironment. Remember that the government was launching that space program for companies that want to target young people and relevant to space. So that's related to that. Also running a computer club and inviting sci-fi fans to play the game there, providing some cookies and tea. Yes, so imagine you advertise this event at various places on the internet, for example. And people from different communities, from different social networks, they come for your event and they get to know each other. And hey, like 10 minutes past, you already have a community for Alien Space Kill right in front of you here playing your game. And the best case scenario is that they continue chatting or having some friendship after your event. And what connected them? Alien Space Kill. That's awesome. You already laid out some kind of foundation for a community. And probably when your game comes out, people will already expect it and definitely check it out because they remember that this is Alien Space Skill that brought them together. So this is another example of that opportunity lingering in the horizon, you know? Like you don't just come up with ideas, you also try to look at them like from the top and try to see whether there is something else that that this opportunity can bring to you. Okay. So online, let's talk about online tactics. For again the sake of time and scope, we'll focus on Facebook page and Facebook groups here in this presentation. So a big advice I can give is that always take advantage of the algorithms on that social network that you are using, because algorithms is something that will always push your content further if you're using the guideline that the social network provides for this. Do not ignore those guidelines. There can be many, they can be a bit confusing. Try spending some time on those and figuring out which one suits your needs best. Like in the case of Facebook, for example, we might want to use short to medium text using hashtags relevant to the game, at least 3 minutes of videos, square formatted. Instagram and Facebook are one company now, so we might want to cross-link some content with Instagram because Facebook is quite friendly towards it. We would also want to post natively, do some partner content, possibly with an influencer, and tag them as well to address their audience too. And include some images as well, 1 or 3, for example, because Facebook really crops the images in these numbers quite well, quite visually friendly. In terms of the content, we can publish about aliens-related discoveries, about our game in particular, like showcasing videos of planets and so on, and including them into stories. And actually, stories is a very powerful tool. Take advantage of the stories because their functionality of giving polls and establishing questions is really something that that lets you engage with your audience and have discussions with them. And remember that circulation of value. So you don't only give them value by allowing space, by setting up space where they could discuss their favorite topics, but also you get feedback from them. So it's a two-way communication that you really want to facilitate when you're creating your marketing strategy. Beautiful sci-fi environments, especially considering that our alien space skill is really focusing on these. And also raising relevant discussions in the community to keep the topics live. That could be a few suggestions for the content. Here on this mock-up, you see a video titled Deconstructing Alien Space Skill Concept Art, which could be your development diary, for example. Development diary for alien space skill in particular. Yeah, remember, whatever you do, you always think of value and relevance. Once again, reminding you. So now that you have laid out your tactics, you might think of arrangements for these tactics, for instance, to post on Tuesday and Friday at 5 p.m. because your research shows that this is the time and the times and dates when your audience is most active. We also expect to rise on the trend on the German space and post with it. So what is meant here is that German space program that wants to target younger generations to involve them more into the space topics, they will announce, for example, their program in some time. And you will know about it because you might be a part of this program as Indicate Interactive. And when they do, you want to post that you're a part of this program at about the same time. Because assuming that German space program has many followers, that means that when they post something that generates reaction, this will give like a bump to the trend on this topic, okay? And if you do this at about the same time, you can take advantage of riding this wave of trend as well and attract more attention. Maybe even have some audience from the German space program coming to your page to check out what kind of stuff you do. And since you are relevant, it's likely many people are going to follow you as well. There are, of course, more things that you can do, such as create relevant websites, participate in relevant discussions. There are really many things. And just remember that you can get as creative as you want when you are thinking of your tactics. But the most important thing here is that your tactics needs to be relevant. Oh, I know I said this already, but I mean, don't block your ideas because they seem unreal or stupid. There is no stupid ideas in creativity, okay? It can be an absolutely out of your head idea in terms of creativity. Just make sure if it is relevant and you think that, and your research shows that this idea is going to bring you the desired result, then go for it. You never know what's going to be the next big thing. Maybe your game is the next big thing, okay? Or maybe your marketing is the next big thing. Sorry. So let your ideas go. Okay, you laid out the strategy and tactics. Now you come to execution. Yes, all this huge work was done. The worst, the most difficult part is done. Now you're coming to the execution of your strategy. Well done. You are doing what you planned. And now you see like a few golden fishes here. It's the results. Okay, so you're already seeing some fish. Nice. Yay, you got some results. That might be something that you expected to get. Maybe something better. That's amazing. Maybe something not quite good. Maybe something not that you quite expected, but that's fine because what's important here is that you're getting feedback and you can act on that feedback. And there are many ways that you can act on. There are various tools existing on the web and in real life, like your eyes, for instance, they all exist, that will help you interpret that feedback and to act on it. Acting on the feedback is the final step of your strategy. It's called re-strategizing. When you have the feedback and you analyzed it, you think of how you could make your results better. And in the case of Alien Space Kill, for example, we found out that instead of Tuesday, it was Thursday, 5 p.m., that when you had the largest activity on among the community. So we might want to post at this time now. Also, a stall at the sci-fi convention wasn't very effective, but the cosplay during Comic-Con was. Probably those Instagram posts of people who took pictures with you really did bring some results after all. Okay. And this is kind of a never-ending process. You re-strategize, you apply this new strategy, you execute it, you see the results, and you act on those results again. And then you again reevaluate. So this is like a never-ending cycle. And it's very important not to be stuck in one place. Many companies do that because they are afraid of, because they think that's something that has been bringing some value, some result for the past 5 years, will do this even in future, which may not be the case, especially considering that we are in game development, which is a very dynamic industry, and considering all the technological change that is coming these days. We always have to be on top of things to make sure we are relevant to the audience, and we are bringing them the value that represents the current situation of technology, of ideas, of the industry. We're trying just to be the best for them, and this makes us to be the best to ourselves as well. Okay. So to sum up this presentation, we start from the foundation, from defining the marketing goals, then through the analysis to strategy and tactics, to execution, interpreting feedback, and re-strategizing. So now to give you some helpful advice that will hopefully get you through this journey. By the way, have a look. You're already next to those green hills, okay? So to give you some advice that will hopefully help you to get to those hills faster would be to not to skip the steps. Okay, it's a huge temptation to think that, okay, I feel this is the right thing to do, I'm going to do this. No. Okay, well, yes, but also no, because the more experience you have in this, of course, the experience sometimes will let you know which idea to take and which idea is probably not as good. But if you just think that I know these guys, I know what they want, I'll do this for them and that for them, that's probably not the best approach. Research is the approach that will give you a solid result, and you will not spend extra time on redoing things just because you thought they would be nice, and because everybody does that. Learn from the best your experience, something I already mentioned. Be flexible and listen to your audience. Again, don't just ignore them. There are always valuable insights that come from your audience. Don't lose hope and believe in what you do. It's possible. Yes, of course. More often than not, you will not get huge results immediately. But the more you do this, the better you become in this, and therefore the better results it brings. So don't give up. It's important. Don't be afraid of experiments. Again, as long as they are relevant to what you want to achieve and as long as they bring value, they are fine to take on. Don't follow the herd. Make sure you're doing what's needed for your particular project and for your particular audience. When in doubt, check your marketing goals. They will always guide you towards the best decision. That's what I mentioned before. Always remember your foundation. It will always guide you whenever you are in doubt. Remember value and relevancy, probably your two most hated words by now. And good luck. Yes, it's possible. You have to believe in this and just not give up. Everybody was in the beginning once. Thank you for your attention. Do you have any questions?
Daria, thank you so much for presenting on questions. The first question is, what instruments did you use to make an audience research?
To make the audience research. Okay, so basically what you need to do is when you decided which particular segments you want to address, you need to find out where they are. Like, possibly social media is always the great tool to start from. Just for the sake of making it a bit simpler in terms of explanation, if we take the example of Alien Space Kill, you would need to go to the relevant communities about space, about games set in space, about gaming art related to space, and you will see what kind of stuff people post. What brings the majority of reactions? What kind of stuff of content brings the majority of reactions? What do people comment? What do people what people would like to see in terms of content there? Sometimes there are some wishes. Sometimes people even suggest the content themselves. This is a good start. When you got that start laid out, you already you already have a basic idea of the guys, of what they want, what they expect. This will set up this would be like a starting point from your research. Then you can go to communities like Reddit and Discord, for example. Those have a lot of insights on what people in a particular genre, for example, might be interested in. So as long as you get those down, you will already have a large idea of what your audience is thinking, what they want, what their behavior is in terms of in terms of this particular genre, and what they want to see and hear. This will give you a chance to implement that, perhaps in your marketing strategy.
Thank you for your answer. The next question. May you give an example of your favorite marketing companies? Maybe the one you have made in 4A games?
Well, we all know what an NDA here is, right? So I cannot talk exactly, unfortunately, about 4A games, but I can definitely give a favorite marketing example of a game, which would be which would be Red Dead Redemption 2. I lived in Berlin in that time, and interestingly enough, this marketing campaign wasn't online; it was offline. And the guys who ever created that marketing campaign, what they did is that they, at every bus stop and at every metro station, you had all possible space left for advertising or for maps or whatever. They covered this all with promotional posts or maps from Red Dead Redemption 2. And when you're there and you are stuck or you're just waiting for a bus or a train, you look at all this and you are already like, at that time, I didn't even know particularly like what that game is about. But I was like, looking at those faces, and it's raining and it's dull because I think it was March or April, and you're just standing next to Arthur Morgan and you're like, okay, what's up, dude? So I've seen your face maybe like 15 times today. Maybe there is something in you, so shall we like have a chat or something? So they are constantly present in your space, like outside of your work, home, or studying, like, or in university, for example. They're always around you and you feel like you're a part of it. Like with some time, you just feel like you're a part of it. Basically, I just bought the game after this marketing strategy because when all the posters were gone, I felt like I missed them. It's also Red Dead Redemption is also very red. So like in the gloomy weather, this is like the first thing you see, these red posters. And you're like, yeah, I miss them. So that's why I bought them.
Yeah, thank you for your answer. And probably the last question for today. What is a minimal budget for marketing for entirely new indie game studio and their game?
Again, that really depends on what you want to do. There are a bunch of things you can do for free, actually. If you go to social media, for example, like creating events, trying to get people posting in relevant groups is most likely all for free. Of course, if you want to go more with influencers and paid marketing, this will also depend because, again, depending on what kind of influencer you want to attract, they have different audience, they have a different number of people who follow them. So you would need to consider which ones you are looking for first, which ones you would need to meet your particular goal. Okay, if we talk about paid ads, for example, if you go to Facebook paid ads or Google paid ads, you will see that there are so many categories, so many nuances that you need to fill in, that it all is a part of pricing that you will get in the end. Remember that slide that I had somewhere in the beginning about then and now, that now we are talking about one particular person. The more you want to target this one particular person, like the better you want to target this one particular person, the higher will be your spend. The more general nuances you use when you create your paid ads, the less you will spend. Okay. So you need to try this out. Of course, the neither Facebook nor Google, for example, they will charge you in advance. You will be able to create like your ad, for example, and it will give you an estimate. And this estimate will give you a good idea of what kind of budget you would need if you want to have a marketing budget for page sources. But my advice is to try to first take advantage of everything available online. Use your head. If you're a game developer, you're creative to some extent, okay? This is the same kind of creativity. Try to think of all the things you can do for free, then go for paid sources, I would say.
Okay, I think that's all. I think if you have any other questions, you can write Daria via the messenger or meet maybe offline this weekend. So thank you again. Hope you see
Thank
you in
you.
the future.
Yeah, thank you very much for having me, and good luck, guys. Believe in yourself.